So good evening and welcome to Portland Public Schools Parent University. My name is Grace Valenzuela. I am the Executive Director for Communications and Family and Community Partnership for the district. And so Parent University is a platform where families can learn and engage with each other on various topics of interest to support our children succeed in an ever-changing world. And it is a partnership between our parents and the district. And by partnering with you, we support our students and families beyond the classroom. And we provide workshop sessions of interest to parents, and particularly on hot, trending topics. So we look at those, and then we want our parents to be as much as knowledgeable and confident and active advocates for their children. And so last year, Portland Public Schools hosted a year-long digital citizenship cohort with Maine's Technology and Learning Initiative ambassadors called Left to Their Own Devices. That was a parent youth session that we also did last year. And the recording of that workshop, you can access that in our Parent University website for the Portland Public Schools. And on our website as well, you can find a web page on using technology responsibly and digital citizenship. And we hosted additional parent outreach, which included translated family tech plans. And these and other information can be found on, again, our website. Just so you know, brag, 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 Portland Public Schools has been awarded as a common sense education curriculum with the focus on digital citizenship. And we are recognized as being one of 2 common sense education districts in Maine. So in keeping with the parent youth tradition of providing parents with information on hot trending topics, we've invited Erica Marquez, a local author and mindfulness specialist, and who in 2022 published Attention Hijacked, Using Mindfulness to Reclaim Your Brain from Tech. And in this book, Erica offers a compassionate approach to bringing awareness and intention to technology use for teenagers and the adults who care for them. Erica has over 20 years of experience in formal and informal educational settings, serving as a mindfulness educator, middle school English teacher, and outdoor educator. She has a Master of Arts in Teaching, as well as Mindful Schools and Kripalu Yoga certifications. She founded Wise Minds, Big Hearts in 2015 to bring mindfulness to students, families, and staff around New England. In the fall of 2020, she transitioned to the role of mindfulness coordinator for Cape Elizabeth Middle School, where she is to this day. She's also a delighted and often exhausted mother of 2 young kiddos. And in her free time, she runs trails, swims, and eats ice cream. A good one to do in a weather that we had today. So, welcome, Erica.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. I know it's not always easy on a weeknight. It's really fun to be here. My 7-year-old and my 4-year-old will eventually, unless redistricting makes it different, will be King Middle School students. So it's fun to foreshadow in that way. I'm just gonna jump in and try to navigate this and this. So big picture, we'll do some introductions, we'll frame the issue, and then just talk about basically a thinking structure for how to approach tech use with our families. So just a couple of asks as we get going. If we could have technology away and on silent as we go through today, that's just helpful from a distraction perspective. I understand some of you might need to have it out, and if you do, have it out. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to give you ways of thinking. So you don't have to agree with me or the people at your table. Our families are different, our needs are different, but hopefully this creates time for you to think about, well, how do I want to address this in my family? You know your family best. So I wanted to give just a little more information about the book. I sort of think about it as these 3 threads. I was working at Baxter Academy, which is a STEM school in Portland, and having conversations with students in the context of mindfulness about technology. It just naturally comes up when you're working with teens these days. And they and I were trying to figure out, how do we navigate this? This is hard stuff. And through those conversations, and also through thinking about how do I teach my children how to be with their technology, I wrote a book. Oops, so here it is. And that's where a lot of the ideas that we're going to be discussing tonight are coming from. Okay, so I like to keep these somewhat interactive, so I want to start with a question for you. Thinking about screens, so iPhones, smartwatches, iPads, laptops, TVs, how would you describe your relationship with screens? Anywhere from 1, I don't really use screens at all, to 5, I'm on it all the time, I'm constantly using it. So I'm just going to ask us to be brave and put up a finger or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. And I'm going to own, I'm like 3.5. I don't know how to do a half. My pinky's the half. So I have 3s, some 5s, some 3s, 4s, 3s. Great. Love that. We can put our fingers down. What's that? Oh, more than 5. Yeah. You can go all the way if you must. You can do that. So I don't do that to shame anyone. That is okay. Part of my approach is like, let's start with where we are. Let's notice what we're doing here as a baseline. I want to offer this message. It's not as simple as screens or not screens. And we want to dig in a little bit to the nuance tonight and hopefully moving forward from tonight. So maybe we're asking ourselves, what are we doing when we're on screens? I've talked with students who do amazing projects. They're videographers, they're music creators. How cool that they have access to these tools. And maybe that's different than like scrolling mindlessly for a long, long time. I think it's really helpful to think about, what does my family care about? What's important to me and us? Because from there we can decide, what are the rules that support our values? What else happens in your family? Are there other ways that you engage together that are different than being on screens? It's worth thinking about balance, screens versus no screens. And then the effect. So looking at, what happens when I'm using my screen or my child is using their screen. So for example, my 4-year-old and my 7-year-old were allowed to watch shows in the evening when they came home because it's easier to cook when they are occupied. And the value there was we needed to be able to get food on the table. However, when said 4-year-old and 7-year-old started freaking out every night, we decided the effect is not worth the gain for our family. And so now they watch shows on weekends because my children can't handle that without becoming dysregulated. And so it wasn't working for us. That doesn't mean it doesn't work for you. That means my children and my house, it didn't work. So we changed directions. And we do a lot of shifting and changing directions based on what happens in our house. Okay, so we're gonna do a little turn and talk. There's a lot of interaction here. I want you to talk at your tables about in what ways are screens useful to your family. So let's start from this idea that they're not all bad, we're not mad at them. In what ways are screens useful to your families? And then we'll come back together, do a little share up, okay? Go ahead. So I'd love to just hear a couple of folks share out what came up at your table. It doesn't have to be what you said, it could be something someone else said. What did you say?
At our table, we say that screen technology helps with schoolwork and helps kids learn things on the TV. They can also learn Bible teaching on iPad. And also helps to connect with families overseas. Also on the day, stress when watching television.
So I heard education, connecting with family, and entertainment, feeling good, stress reduction. Love that. Any other table have a different thought you're willing to throw out there?
We were talking about how we use it for work. So how we make a living, and also for school.
Work and school. Absolutely. Anything else? Presenting. That's good. Glad we've got that. All right, so there's one word difference here. In what ways are screens challenging for your family? So let's flip that. In what ways are they challenging? Go ahead and chat with your table. We'll check in. What challenges are you finding out there in screen land? Tell us.
Almost done on time. There's work, last minute thing, like so many things, so many challenges.
So many challenges, misspent time, missing work, homework's not done. Yes, I just heard sneaky over here. Does that feel? Sneaky. Yes. Yep. Sneaky. Anything else that I already told you about our explosive anger challenge. What else are you doing? Addicting. Yep. Yeah.
And that you were talking about how it's used, like when it was useful, it was like with people, with family overseas or out of state or in different places. But then what the challenging is it disconnects you from the people in your own home. That like the people around you you're not interacting with because you're like.
Okay, so a challenge is disconnecting you from people who are right in front of you because they're interacting on screens. And I will cop to that myself. When I'm texting a friend and my child is next to me, absolutely, it's disconnecting.
The information they're accessing and not really knowing or being able to track exactly what information it is and it kind of dictating decisions they're making and changes in their life that they're creating those habits.
Great, so access to all of the information and the impact of having access to so much information. All right, yeah, thanks for naming those things. It's helpful to have them in the room. So I sort of want to start from this idea that it's not our fault and it's not our kids' fault. Like, we are all being manipulated for money by companies. And when we can remember that when we're talking with our children, when their behavior seems so big or sneaky or hard, if we can remember we're all sort of under this umbrella of tools that are designed to keep us on them, to not want to stop, to choose it over hard work or hard thinking, that can help us a little bit get on the same side of the table instead of finger pointing. And again, this is not to shame. I have pointed my finger at my child many a time, but it is a helpful reminder. So one of the things that's happening is that we have chemicals in our brain that when you do anything that's pleasurable, including getting a notification on your phone, you get a little hit, and it makes you feel good and want more. So this comes up in video game design and social media platforms as a way of keeping us on these platforms, giving our attention, and ultimately giving money in this sort of roundabout way because we're being exposed to ads through these experiences. Our nervous systems, our bodies, are designed to keep us safe, and they get triggered. Little hits of adrenaline or cortisol, they get triggered. Our heart beats a little faster. Our breath might get a little faster. And through the course of a day, we can go up, we come down, we go up, we come down. If we're on screens for a long time and we keep getting those little hits, it is dysregulating. So that's part of what I see with my kids, is that they explode because their body, their nervous system, can't handle more input. They are done. It is very clear. I'm not going to show this video, but highly recommend watching it, co-viewing it if you have young teens or teens. It's derived or comes from this book called The Shallows, What the Internet is Doing to Our Brains. And I'm just going to talk through a few concepts. So our brains are designed to be distracted. Our brains are designed to notice things around us, be distracted. It's for safety, but the screens are constantly distracting us, and our brains are designed to be distracted, so we are here, because we are designed for that. If we are here and designed for this distraction and being pulled in with our open tabs or our phone at our side while we're doing homework or work, it's very hard to learn. It's hard for information to get from short-term to long-term memory. We really do need to have time in our day where we're not getting inputs, where we're not receiving those dings and expected to communicate and revving our nervous system up. So there are lots of other ways of working with our minds. We can do reflection, be outside, connect, Be physically active. So I want to pause this here and just think for a moment, what are the ways your family does things that are not on screens that are good for your brains? What are the things you're doing that are good for your brains and not on screens? So go ahead and turn and talk about that. Again, working from this idea, screens are not bad, balance. What are some of the balancing ways of thinking you have in your family? What's out there? Could be a one word.
Sounds like outdoors.
Outdoor time is happening. Nice.
Art.
Art is happening.
Family gathering. Family gathering.
Yes, family gatherings, maybe family meals. Nice. That in-person connection is really important. Anything else? Sleep. Oh, so good. And actually, when I was working at Baxter with high school students, they say the number one thing, their problem with their phone use is it interferes with their sleep. They really recognize that, and they don't want it to. They're just feeling a little stuck about what to do about it. So sleep is important, especially for that learning process. We know that. Great. Okay, pop quiz. Ah! Everyone's heart rate goes up. Does anyone know what is the age where you technically can get TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube accounts? I heard 16, I heard 13. Yeah, so technically you can sign into social media accounts when you're 13. However, we know lots of kids are accessing these much younger. The reason that you aren't supposed to is actually a privacy and data collection issue. I would argue kids are also maybe not ready for social media before that in a lot of ways. And there's a new book out called The Anxious Generation, written by someone called Jonathan Haidt, and he argues for 16 as the time when young people should be on social media. So just something to think about. They're not supposed to be on there until they're 13. Right. Yes, there was the comment, who's checking? And this is where we get into this situation where we are having to do everything at home, and that's hard and unfair. As we move forward, just a reminder that you know your family, you're gonna do your best for them. And so we're probably looking at something where we're working with our children to think about what works for us. So like in my house, I decide how long and when my kids are allowed to use shows, but they get to choose and have some agency over the shows, what they watch, for example. So here's our framework. Be intentional. Do it on purpose. Be aware what happens when you do it. And be reflective. How's it going? Think about it. Okay, so we're gonna do a little practice, a little experiment. If you have a phone or some sort of technology with you, in a minute, I would like you to take it out and see, can you notice how you feel as you look at your technology? So can you notice what thoughts come up? How does your body feel? Any emotions? Okay, we'll do this for a minute or two. I'm just gonna have you take it out, do what you would do. If you don't have technology, you can just sit here and do the same exercise. I'm just gonna feel, I'm a little nervous, I have a little fluttery heart right now. 2 minutes, go ahead. What happens for you when you're checking it out? I'm starting my timer. Okay, anything you were able to notice? It's hard, maybe hard to stay connected to your experience.
Say that if you forget your phone, it's like your work rate messed up. It's like dead or something.
Yes, we crave it. It feels good, right, to be on our technology. Great. Any other observations about what that felt like?
I just find myself getting distracted by so many things to take off on all the things I have to do. So, cascading.
So lots of thinking, what I have to do, what comes next. It really triggers your mind sort of outside of right now into all these other things that have to happen. And I see a lot of nodding, so we're not alone in that. We can do this noticing for ourselves if we remember. We can also do this noticing for our children. Invite them to notice if they've been on screens for a long time. How do they feel? Invite them to start paying attention. And that's hard to do, even when you're not on a screen. But we want to keep that awareness there so that we can make choices on purpose based on what's actually happening for us. Okay, I just want to name, I am going out of order because I want to end with intentional. So I know that I'm doing that. We're going to talk about being reflective next. So there is a survey in the book, and it's also a resource on the book publisher's webpage. So you don't have to buy the book to do it. And we're also going to put it on the website so you can access it, that asks you some questions to help you think about little nuances of how you use technology. So, how soon after waking up do you usually start using technology? I see hands to foreheads. I see hands to foreheads. I want to ask a spin-off question. Will you raise your hand if you own and use an alarm clock? Not a phone? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes. All right, hands down. You're not better than everyone, okay? I just want to remind us that there are alarm clocks in the world, and we're not used to using them, but you can. Give you a little space. Be in your day before it all comes crashing into your mind and takes you this way and that way. Okay. How soon before you sleep do you usually stop using technology? Just think about it in your own little head. How soon before you sleep do you usually stop using technology? If you're someone who sleeps like a log, maybe this is not an issue for you. Maybe it doesn't matter. If you are someone who is struggling with sleep, you might want to think about this question. You might want to change that behavior. We know the blue light from screens keeps us awake. Do you stay up later than you'd like while using technology? Yes. Yes. My high school students were also an emphatic yes. I do, right? So again, we ask ourselves these questions to notice. Oh, this is what's happening. I wasn't even really noticing that, right? There's power in just noticing that's what's happening. How many meals a day do you spend in front of technology? right? Do you have any meals where you're just with your food, having that experience of eating? And I name these things because I know there are things that are worth thinking about and deciding rather than just doing out of habit because we do it. So if you're interested in the survey, those will be available after and shared out. So in the spirit of reflection, just a little bit of thinking about what's happening in your home right now. And again, not to shame yourself or have guilt, but to try to start bringing awareness. Okay, what's happening? Who's using the screens? What are they using them for? When are they using them? Where in your house are they getting to use them? And why? Because once we can identify these kinds of things, we can start making choices about if that's how we want it to be or not. So go ahead and turn and talk. Here are your questions. Thinking it through. What do you want to notice?
Hello.
Okay. So we talked about noticing, awareness. We talked about reflection, so looking at what's happened. The intentional piece is now looking forward, right? How do I want to engage? How do I want my family to engage? So I'm going to give you just a couple of little hints, and then we'll talk about where to move from there. I really like this. Got my little speaker over here. Our slide manager. So I find a timer to be very helpful for everybody. It's not me that's turning off your show, it's the timer. It really helps me keep track of time. So if I decide I want to go and scroll, I can decide ahead of time, but how long do I want to be scrolling for? It's also helpful if you're doing hard work, like I have to do this hard thing, like where I work, my students have IXLs, which are like math homework on the screen, and that's hard, so you know I only have to do this for this amount of time. So I think having those available, super helpful. Before you pick up a phone or a laptop or an iPad, what are you doing on there? What's the purpose? Why? How long do you want to be on there? They're designed to keep you on there for hours. This is hard to remember. It seems so simple, hard to remember to do. We're going to give ourselves grace. We're going to do a bad job sometimes. That's okay. And then what do you know might happen when you get on your screen, right? What is your chief distraction? So maybe I'm thinking for some of my students, they get on to do their math homework, YouTube. That's easier. That's more fun. If they can, they will choose that. It's not their fault. But knowing that and naming it up front, these are tools we can use to help our brains actually do what we want to do. And we can do this with our kids too. Okay, so when we're thinking about how do I want to use technology, you can make yourself a plan, and there are different models for this, with your family to think about what are our rules. What do we believe in? And so how are we going to do this here? Writing it down and tucking it into a drawer and forgetting about it probably won't be useful. It does require returning to and reflecting on the regular. And that consistency also helps us catch things before they spiral out of control. Regular check-ins. This is our plan. How is it going? Do we need to modify, change it? So I'm going to give you a chance now at your tables. You didn't think I was going to make you work this hard, did you? I'm going to give you a chance now to think about what's an intention that you have for your family moving forward. If there was one thing you really want to focus on, you're not going to be able to change everything on a dime. If there's one thing you wanted to focus on, what would it be? What would be the thing that would be different for your family? Okay, so go ahead and think on that, turn and talk on that, and we will come back together. The question that I posed was, what would this look like if you were being intentional with use? What would that look like? And then I asked you, what's one thing you would change? I'm gonna ask a different question for the share out. What do you already do that you feel good about? What are you already doing that works for you, that works for your family? And it could be a part of screens that you encourage, and you're glad that you're doing that, or it could be a part that you're glad you're holding a boundary around. So for example, my 7-year-old is really into drawing. She does an Art Hub for Kids program. It is very cool. I feel good about that. What about you? What do you do that you're feeling good about in your home?
Well, I'm here because I have a lot to learn, but one thing I think I've done well is the phone is never in this room overnight. It just isn't, and I've set that up, and I've just stuck with it, and that is, if you have a chance to do that, do it.
The phone is not in the child's room at night, and it is working very well. Can I ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
Where is it?
In the kitchen.
It is in the kitchen, so it's in a common space. Great. What else? You got your hand up. So if there's at least 2 people, is that at least 2 people, so some sort of gathering in the kitchen, no phones. Is that right? So you have a space with people that goes phone free, that works for you. Nice. What else? Yeah. No phones at the dinner table. Remember, these are people's things that work for them. That doesn't mean you have to do that. What's the thing that you do that works for you? Right now. So the screen is always visible to a parent. See and hear, check it out, make sure it's okay.
And no password on the phones.
No password on the phones, that feels good. Yeah, great. Yeah.
We did, I let it slide a little this year, so I'm gonna let it, I'm bringing it back, but we ended up setting an amount of time a week, and then the kids were in charge of managing that time. So it took me out of the, like, you know,
Yes.
I was out of the police role,
Yes.
and that felt really good.
Okay. So an amount of time that kids or children are allowed to use in a week, they decide when.
Ish, I mean,
Ish.
4, 8 o'clock, you know, they couldn't.
Within parameters, within limits. Yeah, but throughout that week they can manage their time, which also, I imagine, teaches them to manage their time.
Yes.
Be more aware of that.
Plans.
gonna write that one down, stick it in my pocket.
The other thing we did outside, if you're doing it, I was saying that they didn't, then they stopped inviting friends over because friends wanted screens and they didn't want to like give up their time. So that was a problem. So then my husband came up with the plan of if you have a friend physically with you, not online, it's half time. So what would have been a half hour is 15 minutes.
Okay.
They still can do video games with their friends, but it still keeps them aware of how much time they're spending doing it.
Great. So I'm just gonna repeat so folks can hear. So if someone's with you, then you only count it as half the time. So it's social.
Right.
You're doing it with someone.
No, they did it. They did it. And they got very into it. Like, we thought we'd have to have a board. They were like so aware of it, we didn't have to be.
All right. This was a good tool for your family, it sounds like. Any other ways that you use screens? I heard at the beginning someone talking about connecting to family. I also really value. Yes.
Everything is going on the world.
Yes.
You can say that you know something is happening here, something is happening well.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can quickly.
News and connecting with family. Yep, fast information. My watch just told me that I've had a stressful day, everyone. Isn't that nice information to receive right now? Come on. Anything else? Yes.
We went from being very open with the screens to now every week we know what days to screen on.
So no screens on school nights, and have gone from fairly open with screens to, yeah, to 2 hours total. Can I ask you a question? What do you notice is different with making that change? So the kids are more creative, more present, more emotionally available.
They're all afraid of being bored. You don't want to be bored. They're always like, I'm bored, I'm bored. It's good to be bored.
Yes. Outbursts are less. Children are afraid to be bored. It is good to be bored. I hear. Any last thoughts? Yes?
Trying to put what we're trying and we don't get even better.
Not into the bedroom?
Better for example, right? And you have to sign on that, the work out.
That's it, and it's working for your family.
Slowly, the fight.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
No phone, and you want to get the text from him. I'll tell her, nothing from that, you know, try to find an agent or we have an morning or, you know, when I see the time when I get up, not to read it.
Yeah.
But to work like that.
I'm sorry, I'm hearing the buzzing from over here is so loud. Do you mind coming forward just a little? If you would like me to repeat so others can hear.
Perhaps to start this slow, and to start that is to go to bedroom, no phone in the bedroom, or in bedroom. That is isolation with the phone and the kid. And it will give you a couple of reasons why we gave the phone. Text is uncle, cousin, or to a couple of morning, which is you know, a couple of morning anyway. But that is, you start from, my thought is to start from the bedtime or come down.
Start at the bedtime and come down, moving slowly into, and taking, not going from one extreme to another maybe, but taking your time. Thank you for coming forward. Sorry, I was having trouble with the buzzing. Okay. Oh yeah, okay, so here are some thoughts on things you might want to discuss with your family. What spaces and times, if any, will be screen-free? Spaces, so like kitchen with 2 or more people, bedroom, after 8 p.m. I'm just giving examples, whatever it is for you. What activities are encouraged on screens and what is absolutely not okay in your family? So giving them some clarity around that. Where does work or homework happen? And we can include ourselves in this as well. I try not to do work when my children are in the living room with me, for example. What happens is if a family rule is violated. So my kids definitely call me out when I'm not adhering to what we said is true, and I'm glad they do. I'm like, you're right. I'm sorry. Also, I'm trying to text to set up a play date, so chill. No, I actually, to that, I do think sometimes explaining what we're doing, because we do use our technology so much for that kind of thing, is important. I am on here, and I'm reading the news right now, and that's important to me. And I'm going to be reading the news for the next 10 minutes, and then I'm so excited to play that board game with you. Whatever the thing is, we are allowed to use our screens in front of our children, but I do think it's helpful to sort of walk them through what's going on. Or shoot, you're right, I'm on Facebook again. I don't actually need to be doing that, sorry. I will put it down. So just establishing all of that ahead of time can be helpful. Okay, so our mindful approach, we're doing it on purpose. We're aware of how it impacts us and our family, and we're reflecting and changing as we go. It seems so simple. Life is messy and chaotic. It's hard to remember to do it. Right? So as you go on your journey, just give yourselves and children grace as you can, forgiveness as you can. Okay, I'm gonna let Courtney jump in real quick, and then we'll open up the floor if there are any specific questions folks have.
Thank you. I'm just going to share again, actually I'll introduce myself. I'm Courtney Graffius, the Technology Integration Coordinator for Portland Public Schools. And there is a web page that we have that's called Using Tech Responsibly, and it has some of the tips that Erica has just shared, and I think we'll add that model as well to it. And then there are also some family tech plans that are some good starter questions, very much along the lines of what Erica just shared, including translations. So I just wanted to make you folks aware of that.
Okay, so positioning myself as a parent, teacher, someone who's thought a lot about this, but not necessarily an expert. I feel comfortable with that term. What are you still wondering about? And I might invite the group to think on it with us. What's in your mind as we close out? Questions?
Any other books that you aside from obviously
Yeah, obviously. The question was, are there any reading lists that I have? This feels a little bit roundabout. I have a list on my website, which is Wise Minds, Big Hearts, that has resources on it. And we could probably find a way of linking in some way those resources. I don't.
If you share those with me, the slides that she showed, and there's going to be a video of this, will all be on our website, so we also will add the resources. On the Parent U website.
Great, so it will be on the Parent U website. We'll share out the resources. Any other lingering thoughts or questions?
How do you limit time out? What do you use to do that? After there, you said you thought you were going to have
They did it.
Can I echo the question real quick, just so we can hear? The question was, how do you keep track of time on a weekly basis? What's the tool you use?
So I imagined like a chart that we put up on the wall and used a marker for, because I didn't want to be in charge of it. Like that was what was making me insane. And so I didn't want to have on my phone, But I imagined we would make some kind of chart, and then I worried we wouldn't make it again once it was used up. But they were so mentally, they were 4th grade and 7th grade. You know, they're not 3 and 5, they're not high school, and it all changes. But so they were just mentally so engaged in that process. They were like, I'm going, but I have 4 hours left, and da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, oh, yes, you do, like I'm going, but they were so engaged in it, because we came up with the hours together. We were like, the doctor says an hour a day, and so that's 7 hours a week. And what I was saying is that my younger one especially was getting really upset if he had a day where like we had stuff after school and then dinner and then, and then there was no screens. He was feeling like we cheated him out of screens. And so that was making me crazy, or if he didn't want to go do something because he would miss it. We were like, okay, you won't miss it. You'll find another time during the week. And then we didn't count, if we watched a movie together, watch football on Sunday, we didn't count, that it was their own individual recreational screen time. And it's hard, but I would say now it's harder because the older one has a phone. This is before he had his own phone. So it was all kind of communal screens. Now it's a little trickier.
So the summary is, her kids are very motivated. They were involved in choosing the hours. She was thinking you would use a chart and marker in the hours, but they were very motivated, so that was unnecessary. And it took care of worry around missing screen time on a day where other things were happening, so kids didn't feel like they were missing that. And now it's harder because one of her children has a phone, so it's not a community screen anymore. Yes?
Do you have any, extra tools about how to do these 3 steps? I'm thinking even more specifically the reflection component, because there are so many different ways to reflect, and we do a lot of reflection in our house, and our 8-year-old pushes back a lot about that, like, oh mama, here we go again, you're gonna talk about my feelings, but do you have tools like that on your website and suggestions?
Tools for reflection. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's because mine are just 4 and 7, so they're not sick of me yet. I don't think there's something specific that I have in mind, more like a structure where that happens. So once a month, we sit down, take out our tech plan, talk about how it's going, revise if necessary, celebrate the wins, for example. But I do believe in like repeated structures as being supportive, and maybe not every week, because that's too much. Yeah, so that would have to be sort of based on your family's needs, but that's what comes to mind. I don't know if anyone had a different thought. a reflective tool.
I was just thinking, like, I notice, I wonder, like, I notice I'm feeling keyed up, and I wonder, or I notice you were feeling more supporting the child to reflect on what they're noticing, and then like the back and forth between parent and child. I'm like, I wonder why you might be feeling that way. Like, do you have any thoughts about it? And just like some cajoling, like a little bit at a time, and then pausing and listening.
So Courtney suggested some sentence stems, so I notice whatever it is that you're seeing, and I wonder, so a question about what you're seeing can be helpful. Structure. Anything else? Okay. I will be here for a little bit longer. Again, thank you for coming out, for being here tonight. I hope this is a beginning or a restart for you to have these conversations at home. And I hope as my young children turn to middle school students, that I can figure that out, because that seems hard. So thank you. Yeah, have a great evening.